Hello, I am Janie with Quilting Days with Janie Faye. Today we are going to make a quilted Easter Bunny shirt. To begin, I used an 8-inch cake pan to make my circles, and I drew 2 circles for my pattern. One circle will be used for the ears, and the middle part of that circle will not be used for this shirt. However, I do use it when I make cakes, an Easter Bunny cake. The middle part could be the bow tie. Then I cut those out, and that will be the ears on the Easter Bunny. I have cut out 2.5-inch squares, and I have arranged them in 5 across and 5 down. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to sew each row across like this and then put all the rows together. And this is going to be the center part of the Easter Bunny. I will stack each of the rows like this. And leave the last one on the bottom. So this is row 1, 2. If it's not exact, it's going to be fine because I'm mainly wanting a patchwork. And so it's okay if this isn't exact. So I'm going to chain piece. So this is how I would chain piece. Here I am chain piecing. I'm putting the top 2 of each row together, and I keep the thread going right sides to right sides, and then I open it up to add the 3rd in the row to each row. I keep a thread going between each row so they will all stay in order when I'm finished in the order that I had originally planned. And so I love this method because it takes the guesswork out of which row goes where. So here is my block. I'm going to press the seams and then sew these rows together. But if I keep these threads connected when I'm pressing them, all I have to do is pick up the one piece, turn it over. And here you can decide, do you press open, or you can press one row, seams going one direction. The second row can go the opposite direction. So when you sew them together, you can, what they call is nest the seams. So that is an option. However, I am in my press open era. I don't know why, but I will probably press all of these seams open. These are the fabrics that I have laid out for the ears. So I wanted to have a little pink on one side of the ears. And so then I will lay it, after I sew them together, I will lay it and cut it out. So I'll have a little bit. You won't see the whole block, but that's the way I'm going about this. Now I am sewing together the rows on the larger block, making sure that my seams match from row to row as I am sewing them. And I trim those threads as I go so I do not get the rows mixed up. So notice all of the other rows are still attached by those threads I used with chain piecing. And so that makes the process a lot easier. Now keep in mind, you could make your blocks whatever size you want them. Find your cake pan, your plate, your tea saucer, and make your circles, and then determine how large you want those squares to be. Make this your own to fit whatever size person you're making this for. Here I'm sewing together the 2 columns for the ears. And I'm making sure the pink is going to be on the outside of each ear, the pink column. Here is the block that I'm using for the round part of the bunny's face. So I want to show you that I could have used 4 by 4. I could have used 16 squares, placed it here, and it would fit perfectly with this 8-inch circle. However, I was thinking you can bring in more of the different fabrics and parts of them, if I put it where parts of all of these are going to be in the circle. And that is what I'm wanting to do. So I'm going to put just a portion of the ones here and here and here. So the middle will be full, but then you'll have some extra fabric shining through on the edge. And that's what I'm wanting to do. However, you could easily do this with a 4x4. But I did use a 5x5, so I am going to use all of it. And now I am tracing my circle with a fabric marker, water-soluble ink. With the blue part, it goes away with water. The marking does. Okay, now I'm going to trim this, and then we're going to talk about the ears. I'm going to try it with, I'm going to fold this. I want about half white and half pink, so I'm going to put this more in the middle this time. Now I am tracing the ear pattern onto the ear fabric. Notice the ear point at the bottom. I'm not going to use that, so it's okay that it did not fill up the entire fabric. Did not want to use batting because this is on a t-shirt and I don't want it to be too heavy. So, oh, wait a minute. I just did something I didn't mean to do. I had thought about it. See how these are put on point when I face it this way, or do I want it straight? Oh, that's a great question. I think I'm going to do it just like this. I like that. I am now going to quilt the bunny. I am using flannel instead of batting. It's a little thinner, and that's what I've wanted since I am putting this on a t-shirt. Be sure to wash your flannel before you use it. A lot of flannel will shrink a lot, so it's a good idea to wash it. As you notice, I joined the ears and I left it where you're going to see the raw edge, and that's the look I decided to go with. I am going to go with a straight seam, a straight stitch instead of zigzagging or blanket stitch. You could do either one. You could even skip the step here of putting any batting or flannel. You could put this directly onto the shirt and sew it on with different lines through it. I do want a little bit more, when I wash it, I want to see a little bit more raggedness. So that's why I'm adding this. Plus, it'll give it a little more stability. So let's go to the machine and quilt it. Here I'm showing you where I am running the lines for the quilting. I'm going to go in the middle of each block. So there'll be like an X in the middle of each block for the quilting here. And so I just kind of eyeball it and go through where those points are meeting and go through every row to quilt it and hold it to the flannel. And so I'm going to go up and down. Notice I start at the top every time and come down, and so I'm not starting at different places. That way you will not have as much puckering and twisting of the fabric. So I'm starting in one direction and I go that same direction on every row. Now I am quilting the ears onto the flannel, and I'm just running those lines in the same direction every time. The entire bunny has been quilted, except now I'm going to go around the entire outside shape about 1/4 of an inch in. So I'm mainly just going to use the side of this and go all the way around the bunny. Now I'm sewing around the entire outside of the bunny, the entire circle, and the entire ears with about a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I have pinned the bunny onto the shirt, and I am going to sew some stitches in the ditch to secure it to the shirt well before I sew around the outside. So that's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to make the stitches almost a length of 3, depending on how it goes through this. I do not have a stabilizer on here. I'm going to try it without a stabilizer. You could put a stabilizer underneath to help. I'm going to see if it does okay without a stabilizer. Let's see, I'm going to start it with stitching in the ditch over here. Here we go. Make sure you keep the back of the shirt pulled out so it does not get stitched to the front. I am back stitching because this stitch will be able to be, it will not be sewn into a stitch. And I do think it is doing fine without a stabilizer. Okay, but this will help it secure to the shirt better. You could even take this bunny and put it on a pillow. Just a piece of fabric, make a pillow. You could put it on all kinds of things, the back of a jacket. Of course, you know, Easter only comes once a year, but you could wear it year after year. I am stitching in the ditch, which means sewing on the line where all of the blocks come together, where the seam is. And so it doesn't have to be perfect. My ditch is not perfectly straight. All right, so now I'm going to move to the ears, and I'm going to do this stitch in the ditch in the middle first, and I'm going to start from the inside of the head and work my way out in case it needs to stretch a little bit so I don't get it puckered up at the head. Get it straight from the very start. Stopping a little bit before I get to that stitching there. All right. Okay, so the ear, it goes pretty fast, but there is a lot of stitching here. And I don't think, I mean, it is doing fine without any stabilizer. So let's do the last ear. Okay, now I've got to sew all the way around the outside. I'm going to start with the circle for the head. Remember, I'm going to sew almost on the same stitching I did earlier. Here we go. When I did the 1/4 of an inch, and I'm just keeping it against this foot. So it's very close to it should be right on the other stitching. If it's not, it's okay. I am using white thread. If you were using a thread that would show up, it might matter. Sometimes you might want to use a thread that would show up more, depending on the look. Now I'm sewing around the outside of the circle, then I'll sew around the outside of the ears. I'm using the edge of my presser foot as my guide, sewing a straight stitch onto the stitch I sewed earlier when I was sewing it to the flannel. This is the look of the bunny after I have washed it and dried it. This was using the flannel, so it's still ruffled and frizz up enough for what I want for the springtime. I do want to add a bow, and so I went to Hobby Lobby. They had their ribbon 40% off, and it's 1.5 inches wide. Now, I am not going to permanently attach this because I want to be able to remove it to wash it in the machine. So what I am going to do, I'm going to get a needle and thread, and I'm going to do some stitches here to hold it in place so it doesn't come untied. But I am going to use a safety pin, a small safety pin behind here to pin it on underneath. That way I can wash this and not worry about this part tearing up. I am going to add some fray check to the ends of this bow. I made a mistake by cutting off the tip of it too far. So the tip is pretty long when you get it, so just cut off the very tip. I did cut it way too low and it came out really fast. So I'm doing another bow. I'm going to try it. It dries quickly, so I'm just going to see how it looks. Just putting a tad here on the bottom, where the other one, I think I put a little too much. Let's see how it turns out. All right, so I'm going to just be very careful with this because I did cut the hole too. I'm holding it up so I can just get it here on the end. And maybe the rest will just fall to the ground or to the paper. It's still going in pretty far, but that's okay. I mean, we are wanting it not to fray. So I'm holding it down this way so it'll drip down. If you have this problem of cutting it too large, that may be what you can do. Maybe you won't have that problem though, since I'm telling you about my mistake. All right, so it dries quickly. It says 15 to 30 minutes, so I'm gonna let it dry. I am running some stitches here on the back of this bow, so it will hold in place and not come untied, hopefully. So I'm just going across, trying to go through several layers, and then at the end, I will just tie a little knot in it. So of course this is something that will not be seen, but I want the bow, once I get it tied, I want it to stay in the position that it is so it doesn't come undone when I'm wearing it. And if you look closely after the fray check dried, it is not noticeable much at all. So it leaves a little line. You can see it from maybe different angles, but not obvious. Okay, so there's my bow, and I'm just going to use a safety pin here and go underneath. I'm going to place the bow where I want it to be, and then I am going, and I'm actually pinning it a little bit above where the circle is so I can get through there easily. And it may be that if you want it to lay more flat, that you could tack it down and leave it on there. I'm just not sure how well it will hold up in the washer. You could also put some safety pins here and here, but I'm going to try to wear it with the one safety pin and see how it does. And then I may add some on each side here. I do like the 3D look where it is standing out.
Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have fun making your Easter Bunny quilted shirt, and may you all have a happy, happy Easter. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in the future. Happy quilting!